Tell us about the cost of living impacts in the city. Of course, we've seen off the days of $10 lettuces, I think, but obviously some of the impacts in the bush are being reflected in our supermarket shelves. What are the answers there?
Cost of living affects people in regional areas even more than it does in the city, because everything that you buy has to come from further away. And while we do grow the produce here, and I'm a great promoter of local farmers markets, the distribution supply chain involves a lot of time in a truck and a lot of time on the road. And with the cost of fuel, that time is increasing, so the cost is increasing. And if you look at what our farmers do, their input costs are fuel, are fertiliser, are of course labour, and they're going up as well. And so right along the supply chain for fresh produce, for manufactured food, you've got cost increases and inflation. So I've heard Mr Albanese talk about lots of things. I haven't actually heard him talk about one single initiative that will address this cost price squeeze that we, talking to businesses and everyday Australians, we can see is starting to bite.
Well, this is the trouble. There is a lot of talk, but as you say, not much action. And what worries me, especially when it comes to the cost of living, the cost of transport, the cost of all sorts of inputs, is electricity and energy. And what Anthony Albanese is promising to do by doubling down on his renewables push, surely that's just going to increase power costs across the country. And so far, there's no sign it's delivering the so-called green jobs bonanza in the regions.
Because it's just a magic pudding. It's so easy to talk about the proportion of renewable electricity you're going to have in the grid. It's quite easy to try and walk, well, it shouldn't be easy for him to walk away from his $275 cut to household and small business electricity bills. He certainly walked away from that. But, I mean, you take the Jobs Summit. The Dealers and Motor Trade Association didn't get an invitation. Tesla did. And there are 20 million cars that run on the internal combustion in Australia today. And these are workers and trades that keep people safe on the roads, and we value what they do out here in regional Australia because we know we're not going to have electric vehicles tomorrow. And no one in the world is making an electric ute, by the way. And even if they were, it would be unaffordable. So you've got this whole sector that is just completely being overlooked. And that's just one group that hasn't been invited to the Job Summit, which indicates that Mr Albanese's priorities are not real and not grounded in what Australian businesses need.
Well, indeed, the Prime Minister said there this morning that we need to make more things in this country, that we need to be more self-sufficient, that this is the lesson of the pandemic. A lot of people knew this before the pandemic, of course, but it is true. We would like to make more things in this country, but the more unreliable and expensive you make our energy system, the more you push off manufacturing and other jobs offshore.
That's exactly right, and it's just such an easy thing to say, isn't it? We want to make more things in Australia. You get the head nod in the room, you get the feel good, but what actually do you do? And when you consider the cost of energy, I visited a foundry in South Australia that makes the castings for the Adelaide to Darwin Railway, and it's just simply going to be unaffordable for them to continue to do what they do. So we're looking down the barrel of sovereign manufacturing capabilities that are soon going to desert this country if there's not a focus on what we should be doing here.
So much of it comes down to affordable, reliable energy too, and I think that's an issue that both sides of politics and state and federal are still grappling with. Thanks so much for your time, Sussan Ley. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, Chris. Anytime.